Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for
Good
having
morning.
me. Morning to you.
Why are you gay?
You may have seen this video before that went viral years ago. It's absurd and kind of ridiculous, but it is a question that frankly a lot of people wonder. Why are people gay? Why does homosexuality exist? Is it genetic? Is it psychological? Is it environmental? Today I want to dig into arguably the most acknowledged and widely circulated scientific theory regarding homosexuality, what's famously called the gay uncle theory. I think it's important to discuss these things because when we bring science and data into a conversation, it helps provide an objective lens as opposed to focusing on opinions or beliefs that are rooted in culture, religion, or politics, which change with time anyway. A scientific perspective, though, helps legitimize a phenomenon, in this case, found in human behavior. I'm going to include sources in the description box of this video if you'd like to do more research on your own, but here's the Cliff Notes version of the gay uncle theory. Basically, the idea is that gay men exist to serve as additional parental figures in a family or community at large. Evolution is all about furthering a species through successful reproduction. This theory claims that there's actually value to some adults in a community not being, let's say, designed for procreation, but instead being focused on helping nurture and protect the offspring around them. Now, we're not talking about Sophia getting extra gifts on Christmas from her gunkle. Think more cavemen, survival of the fittest era. If there's a strain on resources as it is, notably food, it makes sense that a biological ticker would designate certain members of a tribe to not bring more offspring into the community, but rather help nurture the pre-existing children. By the way, you'll notice I mentioned uncle and men. For whatever reason, there isn't as much research available on this with gay women, and I found some conflicting reports whether the data I'm about to mention is valid for gay women as well. So for now, this theory applies only to gay men. The science behind this theory relies on what's called fraternal birth order effect, which was identified in the 1990s by Anthony Bogart and Ray Blanchard. By the way, I wonder if Blanchard is related to our girl Gypsy Rose? Oh my god. Anyway, fraternal birth order basically refers to how many older brothers you have. The research shows that with every older brother a male child has, his odds of being gay increase by 33%. Now, that doesn't mean that if you have 3 older brothers, you're now 99% likely to be gay. It's the original probability increasing by 33%. So let's say that you start at 3% likely to be gay just from being a guy in society. Well, with every older brother, that 3% goes up by 1/3. So if you start at 3%, right, and you have 1 older brother, now your probability of being gay is 4%. You throw another older brother into that equation, and now you're looking at over 5% and so on. It's still a small probability, but when you look at a sample size of gay guys versus straight guys, you see a consistent pattern of the gay guys having older brothers and more of them. By the way, they tested for stepbrothers too to see if this could be an environmental effect of having older brothers. Turns out it's related purely to having biological older brothers, and this is where prenatal development comes into the conversation. The idea is that when a woman is pregnant with a male fetus, her body goes through an immune system response where antibodies are released that can affect sexual differentiation in the baby. The more male fetuses she carries, the more of these antibodies are released, which increases the odds of homosexuality. The details around this are fascinating. For example, all of these stats go out the window if the gay offspring is left-handed. For whatever reason, this fraternal birth order pattern found only applies if the gay offspring is right-handed. By the way, left versus right-handedness occurs during prenatal development itself, which further supports the idea that homosexuality is determined during prenatal development if ties are found between these two phenomenons. Another interesting thing to dig into here is twin studies. Twin studies always help scientists determine how much of a scientific phenomenon is genetic versus environmental, since identical twins share the exact same genetic makeup. Interestingly, if one twin is gay, the other is about 50% likely to be gay. That implies that there is some biological component to homosexuality, but it's not 100% genetic if both twins aren't gay every single time. As a side note, identical twins separated at birth would make for a compelling data point regarding this, so that you could account for 100% of the same genetic makeup, but 100% a different environment, at least beyond the womb. Unfortunately, as you can probably imagine, there isn't that large of a sample size of identical twins who are separated at birth, where at least one happens to be gay, and both consent to some kind of research. Now, if you're still with me, you may be wondering, okay, fine, sure, all of this makes sense, but what about all the gay men who don't have an older brother? Maybe they don't have any siblings at all. How do we explain that as part of the gay uncle theory? Well, it turns out there's data on this as well. There's research which indicates that during a pregnancy, if a mother experiences high stress, let's say a difficult pregnancy, or maybe conditions are tumultuous in the external environment, this biological ticker can also go off, bringing another gay offspring into the community whose purpose will again be to help nurture the young versus being another individual responsible for reproduction. Isn't all this fascinating? I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Have you heard of all this before, or is it new to you? Of course, it poses some philosophical questions. What if we get to a point scientifically where we can spot, test for, or even modify a biological ticker responsible for homosexuality? Some may say it's a slippery slope, right? If we get to a point where we accept homosexuality as a biological phenomenon versus giving people the freedom towards sexual fluidity throughout their lives, the opportunity to experiment sexually. I mean, what about bisexuality? These studies frame homosexuality as pretty black and white, which in some ways is a solid case for legitimizing the concept of being born this way, but in other ways may complicate the conversation entirely. Tell me what you think down below in the comments. I'd love to hear your feedback.